What's good all? I'm going to be covering something a little bit out of the ordinary today. Instead of making another Final Fantasy XIV video, I thought it might be fun to check out a Dragon Quest game. That being said, I figured covering a mainline game would be a little bit too easy, so I picked out something a bit more unusual today. We're going to be taking a look at Dragon Quest Monsters 3D, a 3DS remake of Enix's first attempt to break into the monster taming genre. So, without further ado, sit back, relax, and let's take a look at one of Square Enix's more underappreciated titles. In the far-flung year of 1995, the monster taming genre pretty much didn't exist. If you wanted your monster fix, you kinda just had to play Dragon Quest V or Shin Megami Tensei. Jump ahead just 1 year to 1996, and this tiny obscure studio performed some sort of arcane ritual and manifested this all-powerful eldritch force that just took over the gaming scene. The game studio was called Game Freak, and the behemoth they brought forth onto the world was named Pokemon. Look, I don't need to explain how popular the highest-grossing media franchise of all time is to you. Everyone knows what Pokemon is. Hell, I bet even your grandma would know what a Pikachu is, even if she did end up calling it that yellow rat thing or whatever. Thanks to Pokemon, nowadays the monster taming genre is doing really well for itself. Games like Temtem, Ooblets, and Evomon are just a few of the new faces breaking onto the scene, and doesn't look like we'll have to worry about people giving up on monster taming games anytime soon. Game Freak will just release another half-baked, rushed Pokemon entry in about 2 years, so nothing to worry about there. Anyways, back to the 90s. Game Freak's little game is slowly becoming a little bit more than just a little game. And it turns out when an IP suddenly just takes off, all the other companies suddenly get inspired to make similar products. Digimon, Monster Rancher, and Tamagotchi suddenly just kind of popped up, and the list of Pokemon competitors just kept growing from there. Our focus for today, however, is a fairly early entry in the post-Pokemon monster taming landscape. Dragon Quest Monsters was released in 1999 in Japan, and a year later as Dragon Warrior Monsters in the West. This game did really well, both critically and commercially, and in 2001, a pair of sequels were released in the form of Tara's Adventure and Kobe's Journey. A third game, Caravan Heart, came out in 2003, but only in Japan. After this, the Dragon Quest Monster series just kind of fell off the face of the earth for a while. Then, in 2006, a new monster game was announced, Dragon Quest Monsters Joker. It was like Dragon Quest Monsters, but cool. See, the protagonist has stupid hair, so it must be good. I mean, it was pretty good. Good enough to get a sequel. Then Joker 2 did well, so they made a Joker 3. But we didn't get in the West, so that's kinda unfortunate. And you know what's even more unfortunate than that? The remakes of Monsters 1 and 2 that came out on 3DS didn't come to the West either. Oh hey, look, that's our game right there. I guess I should start talking about it, shouldn't I? But before I do that, if you've enjoyed your time here so far, don't forget to hit the like button and consider subscribing too. Videos like this take me a bit to make, and subscribing and ringing the bell are the best ways to get notified when I upload next. It also lets me know you enjoyed my content, and I really appreciate that. Anyways, back on topic. Our adventure begins like any good RPG game, in some tiny fantasy house. Don't get too comfortable because we're about to never return here ever again. Well, it's about that time, so let's introduce our protagonists, Terry and Millie. Terry and Millie. This game is actually a Dragon Quest VI prequel, but that doesn't, ever get brought up, so we're just gonna move right along. These two are about to go on an incredible adventure. Tomorrow. Right now it's time for bed. We'll just wait until the morning and... Wait. What was that noise?
Hi guys, Rodney here. I'm wanted in 49 states, don't mind me, just kidnapping this child. Get owned, kid.
So, you know how, literally 30 seconds ago I said these two were gonna be our protagonists? Well, that was only half true, because Millie gets captured and just kinda isn't in the game anymore. Whoops. Look, we can still go after her. Come on, Terry, let's get... the old trapped under the regular wicker basket trick. A clever maneuver. Fortunately for Terry, he's saved by the introduction of yet another weird creature. This fluffy guy is Cottony, not to be confused with the previous dude. See, he's not purple. Just ignore that one. Look, he's gonna help us get Millie back. All we've got to do is follow him into a magic glowing dresser and not ask any questions. Yeah, I see absolutely nothing wrong with this arrangement. Welcome to Great Tree. It's called that because it's a giant tree. According to Cottony, he knows a guy who can help us with our rescue mission, and would you look at that, it just so happens to be the king.
Oh, greetings, child. You must be Terry. Cottony has told me so much about you. I am the monarch of this land, King Great Tree.
Wait, Great Tree? The man's name is Great Tree? I can be persuaded to forgive naming your tree kingdom Great Tree. It's goofy, but not inaccurate. However, I will not just stand here and pretend Great Tree is a normal name for anyone. Ugh. The only thing that could make this worse is if the game introduced more people with terrible tree-based names. Well, as it turns out, the king can't actually help us find Millie, at least not directly. Our arrival in Great Tree just so happens to coincide with a very important event, the Starry Night Tournament. According to Mr. King here, if we enter the tournament as a representative of his kingdom and win, we'll be able to see Millie again. Now, you may be asking yourself, what is the Starry Night Tournament? Well, I'm glad you asked. According to His Highness, every year all the kingdoms gather to host a fighting tournament between monster scouts in order to prove which kingdom is the coolest. Oh, and also the winner gets a wish of their choice, and, that might be sort of useful. And also the winning kingdom gets a super important magic stone that's integral to keeping their kingdoms from wasting away and dying. Also, it's, tied to an ancient blood feud between humans and demons spanning several centuries, but, don't worry about that, that's not important. Anyways, now we've got an objective. Become an S-tier monster scout and represent Great Tree in the Starry Night Tournament. To accomplish this, there are two things you've got to do. First, assemble a super powerful team of monsters, and second, clear all the ascending tiers in the battle arena to prove just how cool we are. So, let's get right to it. Dragon Quest Monsters' main gameplay loop involves venturing to randomly generated dungeons known as Traveler's Gates with the intention of reaching the bottom floor and defeating the boss monster. That being said, some of these boss monsters absolutely slap, so we need to make progress on our first goal and work on getting a really powerful team. There are two main ways to getting stronger party members in Dragon Quest Monsters, scouting and breeding. To scout a monster, first you've got to be fighting the monster. Then you hit the fancy little scout button and all your monsters get all amped up and glow with this blue energy. Then they all hit the enemy and fill this percentage meter. Except the amount they fill is determined by how much damage they do to an enemy when executing a normal attack, which means it comes out to your guy's attack stat versus the enemy's defense stat, which absolutely blows if you're trying to use a magic casting monster because they don't have an attack stat because they cast magic! And then the scouting monsters can miss or crit the attack, so now you have no idea what your monsters are even gonna do! And that percentage gauge, it's not even your progress towards scouting the monster, it's your percentage chance to scout. So the whole thing is entirely random. This system is the absolute. There is one way to get stronger monsters in Dragon Quest Monsters. Monster breeding. At the bottom of the Kingdom of Great Tree is a very important room called the Monster Shrine. Run by the Monster Grandpa, this is the only place where the player is able to conduct monster breeding. God, it sounds so weird when I say it like that. I'm just gonna call it Monster Fusion. Monster Fusion is a process in which two monsters are combined to create a stronger monster, inheriting the stats, abilities, and skill sets of their parent monsters. Through fusion, you can create monsters that are both impossible to find in the wild and much stronger than the sum of their parts. Wait a second. A world inhabited by talking monsters, recruiting monsters in combat, fusing monsters into stronger monsters. This isn't a Dragon Quest themed Pokemon clone. This was a Shin Megami Tensei game the whole time. Anyways, on paper, Monster Fusion seems super straightforward. Monster A plus Monster B equals Monster C, and that would be a completely reasonable expectation from any regular game. However, here at Dragon Quest Monsters 3D, we like to get a little obtuse. If you try and combine two monsters together without thinking, there's like a 50% chance the game just won't let you. No, this isn't a programming error mistake, it's just a really stupid game design choice. As it just so happens, the devs really thought it was important to sex all the monsters in the game. So now you've got female, male, and hermaphrodite monsters. As you could probably guess, you can only combine monsters with the opposite sexes, and the resulting offspring will be assigned a random sex, so God forbid you're trying to go for a specific monster and you happen to get two of the same sex. The only way around this is to get your hands on some scepters that lock the sex of the offspring during fusion, but you've got to do quests for the queen first, so good luck. In a similar example of unique game design, monsters can only be combined when they're level 10 or higher for some reason. Now, I'd assume the argument for this was something to do with, immersion or something. However, And hear me out here. I present to you a counterpoint. Fuck you. These mechanics are just dumb, and they only serve to slow the game down. If you're going to be a Megaton game, then commit. Let me just mass fuse monsters together all at once and do what I want to do. I can't stand fusing two monsters, tromping around in a dungeon until the new monster is up to level 10, then returning to the monster shrine just so I can finally do the next step in my fusion chain, and then repeat. These are precious minutes I'd rather not be wasting on some random tedious game design choice. Although, now that I mentioned fusion chains, do you want to see something goofy? Yeah, of course you do. Most Megaton games have fan-made fusion calculators available online. All you need to do is slap Game Fusion Calculator into your search browser and voila, a guide to making the guy you want. Since Dragon Quest Monsters 3D just so happens to be baby's first Megaton game, I figured I should be able to find a similar resource if I looked hard enough. Lo and behold, a fusion guide. Wait, this one's in Japanese. I can fix this. So a little poking around, and there we go. An almost entirely comprehensive Google Sheets page, courtesy of one Super Salad 1. I'll link the page in the description. My plan going into the whole monster fusion system was to obtain two specific monsters. Number 604, Corvus, the final boss of Dragon Quest IX, because he looks sick, and number 609, Myzorugius, since he's like the last monster on the list, and he must be like super strong or something. Spoilers, I didn't get Myzorugius because relying on RNG to make any progress just isn't something I want to deal with, and it's not fun. I did get Corvus though, so buckle up because this is about to get super convoluted. Alright, so I'm just going to level with you. This next section is pretty long and confusing, so if you don't feel like listening to like 50 different monster combinations, I'd recommend skipping to the next chapter or the next timestamp on the screen. To those who are ready, let's get started. We're going to start our journey with this monster here, Jum. This little guy has a cool quirk where if you combine him with 3 other monsters in a set, you get a special monster only obtainable this way. Oh wait, I was supposed to explain Grandparent Fusion, wasn't I? Where normal monster fusion is monster A plus monster B equals monster C, Grandparent Fusion is A plus B equals C, then D and E equals F, and C and F equals G. Confusing? Yeah, it should be. Anyways, back to Jum. You can find this little guy wandering around a mid-game Traveler's Gate. I'm too lazy to get the name. Don't worry about it. And with a bit of easy fusion, you can get your hands on Bo, Mum, and Bo. Now, by combining these 3 with Jum through Grandparent Fusion, you get Mumbo Jumbo. There he is. Then, we add a Gold Golem to get the Dragon Quest VIII boss, Ruin. Following? Okay. Next, we're going to need the monster Atlas, which can be easily acquired through fusing 4 Gigantes, which in turn can be created by using Boss Trolls, which are scoutable, as well as Great Muddy Hands, which of course are created through Grandparent fusing a bunch of regular Muddy Hands, which means we'll need 16 Muddy Hands, whatever. With that done, we can combine Ruin and Atlas to get Prusillus, this massive dragon guy. I should note that at this point, gameplay-wise, this monster alone can steamroll most of the encounters in the game, single-handedly. But you know, it's not going to stop me. We take this Orochi we can get from clearing a Traveler's Gate and combine it with Prusillus to get Magarugi. Magarugi. It's Monster 3's final boss. It doesn't really matter, you know? Let's keep going. Alright, this is where things get kind of annoying. While we might be one step away from Corvus, we still need to fuse a King Godwyn 2. To do this, we're going to need King Godwyn and the Triumvirate from Dragon Quest IX. This is where we separate the casuals from the absolutely insane, unreasonable, should really be doing something better with their lives, extreme gamers. Oh, fuck me. Okay, alright. We'll start by grabbing an Equinox and Dreadmaster fuse in a Lucid. Combine that with a Mandrake Marshal for Bishop Lodja, slap on a Great Sabercat, and Gorsby Purvis is done. Next, we take a Not So Macho and a Golem for a Wishmaster, plus a Wild Slime to get a Mohawker. On the other side, we use 4 Battering Rams for a Buffalo Ogre, then add another Mandrake Marshal to get Stripes. Now we combine those 2 for Gorham Hog. This one is a bit annoying. Grandparent fuse 2 Ragged Reapers and 2 Grim Riders for a Horseman. Repeat and combine for a Bone Baron. Add a 3rd Mandrake Marshal for a Khan, then fuse with Jamiris for Hootingham Gore. Finally, we need King Godwyn. This part is, without a doubt, the most tedious, so let's get through this one quickly. We're going to need a Tortured Soul and a Reshavrak for this one. I got really lucky and got a Fright Knight to spawn, so pretty good leg up. All we need now is a White Knight, which I just kind of stole from another scout. Okay, pause. Sometimes while you're tromping around dungeons, you'll see these NPCs wandering around. If you talk to them, you can challenge them to a fight. and then things get kind of weird and screwy. For some reason, the game treats these battles like any other monster battle, which means you can scout the NPC's team members like you're just using an action replay code. Okay, unpause. Now that I have my Tortured Soul, I just combine 4 Argon Lizards and 4 Fro-Fries to get 2 Great Argon Lizards and 2 Fro-Fros. Mix those two, and bang! Rishavarek. Rishavarok? Anyways, combine the 2 biggies for a coral. Next we need a Marquis de Leon. This guy is actually quite easy. We've already made 2 of the components before. All we need is another Mohawker and a Buffaloger, and with that done, I have everything I need to finish my chain. And then I immediately run into an NPC Monster Scout that has the whole Triumvirate on their team, which is awesome. Thanks. Finally, we combine the 4 monsters to get Godwin 2, then toss in the Magaruji and Corvus acquired. Oh, I also took the opportunity to pick up Zoma and Nimzo, the final bosses of DQ3 and 5 respectively. And you know, while I'm flexing, let me lay out a funky game mechanic that will make this accomplishment even more ridiculous. The way this game handles your monster progression is kind of weird. While you do have regular leveling, certain skills and attributes can only really shine if you evolve them. This is accomplished by having fully maxed out that trait or skill and then fusing the monster. The resulting monster will then have the evolved version of the skill as an inheritance option, and then it gets weirder. Certain skills will combine while evolving. If you combine like a level 3 stat boost with its respective class trait, which I never really found out where to get these, you get the Uber version of that trait. For example, Attack Boost 3 with the Warrior trait gets you Uber Attack Boost. But like, that's like boring normal stuff, nobody cares. Check this out. If you combine the level 2 versions of the spells Zap, Whoosh, and Crack, you get the Uber Blessed Blizzardier trait. I'm not even going to try to repronounce that, I don't care anymore. Similarly, combining Frizz, Bang, and Zam gets you the Uber Dark Dynamiter skill. Then, we're going to do something a little bit goofy here. If we take those 2 Uber traits and then combine them, you get the Uber Mage trait. This lets the monster that has it cast the strongest version of all of the elemental spells. Just because. So you already know I slapped that in a Wisdom Boost 3 on Zoma. Corvus' skill set isn't quite so crazy. He has Uber Knight for the strongest melee skills, Uber Dark Dynamiter for the beefy dirt magic, and he keeps his signature trait for some stupidly good stat boosts. Man, that took quite a bit of time. Hey, but I can finally talk about the game's story now, you know, that thing that I talked about a little at the beginning and I've just kind of been letting sit there. It's pretty exciting, huh? Yeah, huh? Ugh, I can't spin it. I can't pretend. This game's story blows. The game has 2 plots. The first can be summarized as do a Traveler Gate, fight the boss, get warped to the throne room, the king says something ridiculous about the boss you just fought, the jester spins over and then says, "That's a bit much." Oh, I'm sorry. Was that not funny enough for you? Did you not like the joke? Anyways, the second plotline is substantially more interesting, which isn't saying much as the bar is literally on the floor. Throughout the game, you sometimes run into this dude when entering the boss room of a Traveler's Gate. Oh wait, I can't actually do that bit anymore. I just realized I already showed off Adult Terry's design at the beginning of the video, so I can't pretend to not know who this... Yeah, so from time to time, Adult Terry will just show up and say some really edgy shit. Usually he's just pissed off a monster, and then he like forces us to clean up his mess. I mean, at one point he calls young Terry a loser for not using a sword, like, incredibly based, but bro, what the fuck, he's like 10. After being made to deal with him for a while, we eventually find ourselves at the end of the final Traveler's Gate, the Reflection Gate. This boss area is actually a direct recreation of a nearly identical moment in Dragon Quest VI. The events even play out pretty much beat for beat. There's this sick-looking monster named Durin. Everyone knows his recolor better, but he like guards this tower. And when the hero shows up to confront Durin, he makes him fight Terry, who has sold his soul to Durin for more power. The hero wins, of course, then goes on to defeat Durin. Okay, so here's where the story goes from like sort of okay to like kinda cool. The original reason for Adult Terry being so obsessed with strength is because as a child his younger sister was kidnapped by monsters and he wasn't able to save her. Sound familiar? Dragon Quest Monsters is an alternate timeline where child Terry stops being an absolute lamer and enlisted the help of some boss monsters to get his sister back. Now, this is some pretty cool parallelism and a pretty interesting exploration of an alternate history for Terry. However, that doesn't make it a good story. You can't just present some cool ideas and try to pass it off as proper writing. Anyways, we just kind of obliterate Terry and Duran. It's not really even a challenge. Looks cool, though. Then adult Terry, as he's like turning into a ghost and fading out of existence, turns to his child self and says, "I was cringe, but you can be based." And then he just dies. And Terry's sad about it. So let me tell you about the end of the game. This has gone on for long enough anyways. Once you finish the final Traveler's Gate and cleared all the tiers of the Battle Arena, which are lame, by the way, you can finally participate in the Starry Night Tournament. These are a series of fights against the neighboring kingdom's representatives, which is a bit anticlimactic. Hey, but at least they decorated the city for the festival, yeah! Our adversaries for the tournament come from the kingdoms of Big Tree, Dead Tree, and Great Wait, these all have tree names. Oh, they're probably situated in giant trees, aren't they? Oh, but the kings of the kingdoms are named after the kingdoms, and oh, his name is Dead Tree. Why? And this is Great Log. Oh, why is he so shredded? Oh, no! It's okay. I'm okay. I'm calm. I'm composed. We're almost done. I just need to keep it together for a little while longer. Our first match is against the guy from Big Tree. He's got an Orochi, a Centaur, and they're dead. They didn't even get a chance to attack. That's rough, buddy. Moving right along to Dead Tree's rep, he's brought a Reshavrak, Unicorn, Dracularge, and the Living Statue. This fight actually takes 2 turns, but only because the statue uses Defending Champion to get a massive defense spike. And then the rest of his team is summarily annihilated. And then he uses an attack next turn, and that's a bad move. Yes, sorry, man. Finally, we arrive at the last round, the final boss of the game, Great Log's champion. Throughout the game, there have been rumors circulating about how strong and ruthless this monster scout is. Plus, Rodney from the beginning of the game said he'd come from Great Log. Certainly, this is some super imposing antagonist. Yeah, so it's actually Millie. It was Millie the whole time. The reason Rodney kidnapped her at the beginning of the game was so that Great Log could have some super strong champion monster scout. Yeah, so Millie's the final boss. Hey, but you know, this could still be pretty cool. Some kind of like legendary confrontation, brother versus sister, 2 strongest monster scouts duking it out until there's only 1 champion left standing. Yeah. But like, unlike Millie, I've got 60 plus hours of playtime. Oh, this is gonna be bad. Millie's team consists of a Metal King Slime, Coat, and Prism Peacock. Now, your average Dragon Quest player might be a little bit nervous when the enemy's team has a metal monster on it. However, I know that in this game, their unhittable nature is actually tied to their agility and defense. Which means that Malroth can just kinda hit it for 37 damage, killing it instantly. Yeah, it's not looking good for Millie, especially not after the Prism Peacock only outputs like 4 damage. Now, I'm not gonna say this was an absolute wash. The Coat landed a solid 120 on my monsters with the Breath Attack Cremate, but like, check out this regular attack though. And with that, Terry is victorious, and the game is pretty much over. Rodney tries to swoop in and capture Millie for losing, but like, Great Tree was ready for him, and the Raspberry Cotton Swab just gets kind of put away by these generic guards. The game closes out with a celebration at the top of the giant tree, watching a meteor shower before Terry and Millie finally return home through the sealed door in the back of the monster shrine. Then the game tries to do the "it was all a dream, but it actually wasn't" bait and switch, but like, it just doesn't land, and But that, my favorite viewer, is Dragon Quest Monsters 3D, a monster taming game that wants to be both Pokemon and Shin Megami Tensei without fully capturing what makes those games so endearing. Despite having hundreds of monsters to fuse, the system is so tedious you'll probably end up too frustrated to continue. And man, the writing just doesn't exist. Overall, Monsters 3D was a terribly bland experience that left me more exhausted than entertained a large percentage of the time. Phew, I'm finally done with that game and finally free to do... What? To be continued? Oh. We'll just save that "to be continued" for another day. I'd rather not let this video suddenly double in length trying to cover the remake exclusive post-game story. Ugh. Thank you immensely for watching. I've been working on this video since like mid-August of last year, and while it might not be the most impressive piece of content, I have been working quite hard on it nonetheless. If you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like and letting me know what you thought of the video in the comments. And while you're at it, consider subscribing and hitting the bell to be informed when part 2 of this video comes out. Hopefully within like the next month or so, should my schedule remain consistent. Thanks again for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.
Thank you.